And we're off. This is Mrs. Lily, and we're talking about stem changing verbs today. Okay, you're going to need to take lots of notes, so please get those ready. Today we're talking about stem changing verbs. And I've pulled up my verb flower here again to remind you that there's two parts to the verb. You have your ending, and you have your stem. And so far, when we've been talking about verbs, we've been talking about how the ending of the AR, ER, IR verb changes. But as it turns out in certain verbs, there can also be a spelling change on the stem. So that's what we're talking about today. But before we do that, I want to review the different endings we have for each type of verb. So I need a volunteer to come up and write them for us on the board. So I'm going to pause this and you can come up and do it. So the reason why we went over these is because it's very important for you to keep in mind that you need to use the correct ending when you're conjugating verbs. And also so I could double check you knew your ending. So there they are. And then we're going to talk about 3 different types of stem changing verbs. First of all, there can be a stem change or a spelling change basically from an E to an IE. That's our first type. Our second type is from an O to a UE. And then our third type is from an E to an I. And it's important to note, hugar is also a stem changing verb, but it is an exception because it does not have one of these spell changes. It is unique in that it has a U to a UE spell change. And we've already worked with hugar a little bit, so you should be familiar with that. You have also seen a couple that have stem changes in them and use them, like tener. Tango tienes has that IE. Tiene, tenemos does not, but tienen does, and I drew the little boot around it to help you remember which ones change. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is the 3 different types of spell change or stem changes you can see on verbs. So we're going to start with the verb preferir, and I have the steps listed up here for you, but watch me as I conjugate the verb. So, in talking about how this works, let me pull this down a little bit. There we go. You're going to be able to see my whole verb shoe. I'm going to show you how to conjugate a stem changing verb. First of all, you need to identify your ending. Is it AR, ER, IR? So look at my verb here, and I notice I have an IR verb. Okay, I've noticed that, so now I know that I'm going to be using IR endings. These endings here are going to be incorporated into my verb conjugation. Secondly, I'm just going to take and cross that off. I've made a mental note. I'm using IR endings. Okay? Then I got to look at this piece of the verb, and normally we would just copy this in, but not today because this is a stem changing verb. So I need to determine what's going to have a spell change. So what I do, I go to the end of my verb and I hop back to the first vowel. So from the ending that I've crossed off, I find the next first vowel, and so this E is going to change. Now I just happen to know that preferir is an IE stem changing verb, but if it's an E, you can determine that it's not going to be an O to UE stem changer, that it has to be one of these two. Now really the only way to ever know this for sure is to just have these verbs that do this memorized. But lucky for you, in Spanish too, I usually just tell you with my own knowledge because I have them memorized, and eventually you'll get familiar with them and know. All right, so this E right here is the one that's going to make the change. And it's going to change to an IE. So that's the deal. I guess I put this arrow here so I can do it like that. So this E changes to an IE. Okay, so then I know that this IE is going to go right here, and right here, and right here, in each of these ones, and right here. Now the reason why I have this goofy green box drawn around my verb is because those are the only ones that change. The nosotros and the vosotros do not have the IE stem changer in there. And another way to refer to verbs that do this is to call them boot verbs. A lot of Spanish teachers will call it a boot verb to help you remember that if you draw a boot around your verb conjugation, you will have the right ones. So now I can go back and I have an IR verb. So I know that I'm going to use my IR endings on there. So that would be for the yo form, prefiero. For the to form, prefieres. For ella and usted, prefiere. For nosotros, I just keep that E but no I. So you're at preferimos. Then we get preferís and prefieren, like so. Now this verb preferir means to prefer. So yo prefiero, I prefer. Tú prefieres, you prefer. Él and ella prefiere, he or she prefers. Usted prefiere, you formal prefer. Nosotros preferimos, we prefer. Vosotros preferís, you all informal prefer. Ellos and ellas prefieren, they prefer. And ustedes prefieren, you all formal, or if you're not in Spain, informal as well, prefieren. So here's the second example. I have cerrar, which means to close. So I'm going to look at the ending of my verb and I'm going to make a mental note. I'm going to be using AR verbs. But then I cross that off and I need to look at the next closest vowel to the ending. Now that's pretty easy. In this one we had two vowels. There were two E's to deal with there. But in cerrar, there's just one vowel here, and that will very often be the case. And if this were an O, then I know it'd be an O to UE stem changer. So this is the E that I'm going to be dealing with, and it's going to become an IE. Okay? Then I've got to remember that my IE is going to be used on every verb in the boot shape of the verb chart. So basically, all of the forms are going to use an IE except nosotros and vosotros. Then I can start conjugating my verb. So I get C before the IE and then my double R. So I'm just going to go ahead and place the rest of my stem in each of these forms. So cier, basically. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in for each one here. You guys get to see my great writing skills with a mouse here. It's not all that easy of a thing. Now, for these two, I don't need that IE in there, so then instead I get C-E-R-R, or just ser, instead of cier. Now I can go back in and go, okay, I'm ready to add my ending. It was an AR verb. So if I need to refresh my memory, I can look back at my AR verbs. These are the ones I'm going to be utilizing. And then I'm just going to grab a different color here so you can see how the ending is different. Oh, too far. There we go. So o, os, a, amos, ice, and then on. And cerrar means to close. So I close, you close, he closes, she closes, you formal close, we close, you all in Spain close, and they close or you all close. So cierro, cierras, cierra, cerramos, cerráis, and cierran. And that's how you conjugate that verb. So I want you to try and conjugate your own here. So we go, AR is going to be taken off, and this E becomes a IE. Sorry, why did it's E to IE. There we go. Same with this one. So this E, this E, that E, and that E are all going to change to an IE. So take a minute to try and conjugate them yourself. Okay, so these are the correct answers, and then just keep in mind it's very common for a student to write an A there instead of an E, but it is an ER verb, so we would use the pierdes ending. And then remember, this one is not in the boot, so there would not be the I right there. So this is done correctly. All right, so another practice here. Can you fill in the correct form of the verb and put it in the correct blank? Pause this. Oh, we need to go over the meanings, don't we? Okay, so querer is to want, like yo quiero Taco Bell. Did I put that one on there? Empezar is to start or begin. Merendar is to eat a snack. So to have a snack, to snack on something. Entender is to understand. So yo entiendo matemáticas would be a, well, that should be a D. Cerrar, we talked about. Do you remember what that one was? To close. To, oh, that one we have. That's the same. And querer is also the same. Okay, take a minute to fill in the blank. Okay, so now I want to show you how to do an O to UE stem changing verb as well. And the steps are the same. So you're just going to take and go, okay, poder means to be able, and it's going to be a stem changing verb, and I'm going to notice it's an ER verb, so I'm going to use my ER endings down here, and then I got to go back from the part I crossed off and find the first vowel. A lot of times there's only going to be one, and so if it's an O, it's obviously going to be to a UE because the O is never going to change anything else. So I'm going to go, okay, that O is going to be a UE in this verb. So I'm going to go ahead and put my UEs in my stem inside the boot, like so. And then I'm ready to conjugate my verb. So I know that I need to use those ER endings because I have an ER verb. Why did I choose red? And so I know that's going to be puedo, and then I get puedes, puede and pueden. And I also know that because the stem change does not happen outside of the voot, that I just keep my O here. And then for an ER verb, nosotros podéis, E-I-S, what? This one's E-I-S. Vosotros podéis, and nosotros podemos. Like so. So this means to be able to or I can. So yo puedo means I can. Tú puedes, you're able to or you can. Él puede, he can. Nosotros podemos, we can. Ellos pueden, they can. Ustedes pueden, you all can. And that's how you would conjugate a UE verb. Take a few seconds to see if you can conjugate these O to UE verbs correctly.